There is a viral theory going around on social media that Selena Gomez was sacrificed by Jeffrey Epstein in the summer of 2017, and the version we see today is a clone. The theory continues saying that Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez had a child whom they gave up to Kourtney Kardashian, and that child is Reign Disick. Furthermore, this theory claims that this is why Justin released the song Ghost in 2021. Now, a lot of you guys wanted my thoughts on this as someone who has covered Selena and Justin's lives, spilling inside details and making sense of public ones for the past 13 years. When you've been doing this for as long as we have, you've seen every theory possible and even watched how ones are formed, and in today's podcast episode, I'm going to explain to you what went on with Justin, Selena, and why the sudden link to Jeffrey Epstein. So, here's the theory. The FBI released millions of emails belonging to Jeffrey Epstein a few weeks ago, and people have been plugging in celebrity names to see who was on the island and who was a victim, and so on. Selena's name only pops up once with the email Jeffrey sent to someone saying, "Sorry, you would have had fun. He has decided on Selena Gomez." And the word decided is spelled DIE-cided. So basically, he has DIE-cided. This email was sent on July 21, 2017. This was the same summer Selena had a kidney transplant, sometime in July/August of 2017. If you guys recall, on our blog Scandalous Media, our sources tell us that Selena is scheduled to get something medically done in the summer of 2017. These messages were posted in a Madison Beer/Jack Galinsky post. Talk about a random connection. People are already freaked out by what is revealed in the Epstein files, so they think nothing is a coincidence and nothing is no longer a conspiracy. During the era of 2015 and 2016, Selena used to be a different person. She often spoke with a lighter, more energetic cadence and projected a polished pop star confidence. In contrast, by 2026, the Selena we see now does in fact act like a clone, with a change of voice and tone that has been questioned by many, and in general, her entire mindset has been shifted to that of a closed-off, reserved, deer-in-headlights type of person. So when you add all these things together, and the cherry on top is some Jelena hero story of Selena getting sacrificed, Justin being seen as an emotional mess, getting married to Hailey to be closer to Reign Disick, let's just say there is a lot to unpack. I'll give you guys a full picture of what was going on throughout the years and what led to us seeing this version of Selena that we see now, and you guys can be the judges of whether or not Selena Gomez got cloned. To understand what's going on with Selena, you have to understand that she has had, allegedly, a decade-long drug addiction that she's been battling since 2013. We can do an entire deep dive on Selena's drug addiction, how it started, the little cracks in the public eyes, how we get to see Selena acting differently when she was on all these drugs allegedly versus Selena now, someone who I think for the most part is sober. You will soon realize that drugs were controlling a big part of the personality that we saw from Selena. That personality that we were seeing, that energetic, confident, bad bee on top type of persona was coming with the help of drugs. Now, back in 2014, 2015, actually, back in 2015, 2016, sources oftentimes told us that cocaine gave Selena Gomez a lot of confidence, because that is what cocaine does. And back then, this is what celebrities were relying on to help them out with their grueling schedules. The models were doing it, the actors were doing it, the singers were doing it, everyone was doing cocaine. Nowadays, I feel like cocaine has maybe seen a decline in popularity. It will come back around like it usually does. People are now doing different types of drugs, they're vaping, they're smoking, they're doing different types of things. But in 2013, 2014, 2015, celebrity culture was often plagued by these young stars were doing drugs. And nobody ever thought to think, is Selena Gomez doing drugs? Does she have a drug addiction? Because in comparison to Miley, Demi, Ariana, Justin, Selena seemed like a saint. She didn't seem like she was doing any type of hard drugs. But I actually think, based on what I know, and based on everybody I just mentioned, I actually think Selena's drug addiction was as intense as Demi Lovato's, if not more. It was just never covered by the public eye. It was never something even revealed by the public. So to think of Selena's personality now versus Selena's personality then, you do have to realize there's been a massive battle that she was dealing with that was not being addressed at all. Selena and her team wanted Selena to have this vanilla image. And if you look at headlines from 10 years ago, you will see that Selena's team and her publicist have done more work than anyone else's team and publicist from that same era, from that same group of people. They were so worried that anything bad was going to come out about her that they would literally destroy stories that were going to come out. They would put her in this light of like kindness and she's just a victim and she hangs out with Justin Bieber and, he's a douche and look what he's done and all this stuff. And it was basically, they would blame everyone else but Selena. And she never had a scandal. If you actually think about it, Selena's never had a scandal. Like all of her peers have had scandals 10 years ago. Selena's never had a scandal. And it's not because she was some saint. It's not because she was morally, her head was screwed on correctly. No, it was because her team purposefully made sure none of her scandals ever came out. And at the time, the biggest scandal was this long, intense battle with drugs. I'm telling you right now, she has been publicly seen in rehab 4 different times. That's just publicly seen in rehab. I've covered Selena's drug addiction since the year it started, all the way up to now, kind of. And I can tell you that the version of Selena now isn't on drugs the way the version of Selena back in 2019 was, and back in 2018, and all this stuff. I mean, Selena's first rehab trip in 2014 it was in the Meadows in Arizona, and it was a treatment facility that specialized in treating drug patients. It was not specialized for treating people with lupus. It wasn't even a hospital. And at the time, Selena's team did not release that she was battling lupus until 2015. Before that, Selena was acting very strange. I would say 2 years before that, when it really started, she was acting really strange. She would show up drunk on the red carpet, and there is a video of her at the Golden Globes 2013, drunk at the red carpet. Everyone knows she was drunk, but nobody was brave enough to say it, besides us. She would be seen photographed with people having to hold her up because she couldn't walk on her own. She would be seen on the floor. She would be seen with her head down and like her hair covering her face and bodyguards having to carry her to the car. She would also be seen coming out of her car and falling because she was so drunk. And nobody wanted to address the fact that this Disney starlight, who was not a, crackhead like Demi Lovato or a slut like Miley Cyrus, is doing drugs. In 2013, Selena's pride and a lot of Selena's fans' ego came from the fact that she wasn't like Miley or Demi. Miley at the time is getting slut-shamed. This is before, stuff like that gets you canceled. And Demi's being called like a coke whore. Selena thrived off of having something over them, because look at the way Demi sings and look at the way Miley is literally Disney's princess, like billionaire empire Hannah Montana Disney's princess. So Selena felt good to have something over them, and that was public recognition that she was the sane one. She was the one that isn't doing drugs and going to rehab at 15 or 16 or 18 like Demi Lovato. And she's the one that isn't, wearing God knows what on stage and doing God knows what at the VMAs in 2013 like Miley. That was the one thing Selena kind of had over her peers, because she wasn't out singing them, she wasn't out selling them, and she was not out acting them. And so having this public reputation became extremely important for Selena and her team. So much so that I would literally say on my blog, she is lying to her fans and the public 24/7. And when it comes out that she has been lying about her personality, about her morals, about her kindness, about all these scandals that were like quickly brushed under the rug, when it comes out that this type of person is not who you thought she was, people are going to think, she is cloned. And in 2019, I literally made a post saying Selena Gomez's fans think she's cloned, because in 2019 was when she really started to fall off. She started to not care as much to keep her personality and reputation top notch, This was also after Justin and Hailey's wedding, so she started to spiral, and people thought, who is this person we are seeing? This has to be a clone. So the clone theories, this is not the first time I see the clone theories. They've been talking about Selena being a clone since 2019 because her personality and who she was in the years before that was specifically constructed to be this pop perfect princess. Emphasis on perfect. And this is why, at the time, Selena's peers, such as Ariana Grande, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato, this is why they would have a fallout. Because the idea is she's not like them, She She doesn't tell her fans, I hate you guys. She's not licking donuts saying, I hate America. She's not on stage twerking on Robin Thicke. She is not, going to rehab at 17 years old and having this huge scandal with Disney. So there was this kind of emphasis that she's better than them because she knows how to appear to be this magnetic, charismatic, confident baddie. And I do believe that Selena wasn't outselling them or outselling, or, her numbers weren't that drastic compared to Taylor, Ariana, and Miley more than anything. And I feel like her and her team, that's why they kept it so close. That, well, she's not selling this much, so she definitely can't have a scandal at the same time. Because we need to fall back on those child fans of hers. And I remember back, I think in 2017 it was, I remember sources telling me that Selena's vanilla image is still being pursued to this day in order to have a plan B. Basically, if Selena does not become this greatest selling artist or the next Anne Hathaway, we can send her back to Disney, you know? And it's funny because then Wizards got a reboot, or what was it? They got a spinoff. Wizards of Waverly Place got a spinoff, and Selena was a executive producer, and she's even come on a few episodes. And it's so funny to see that happened in, I think, 2023, 2024, something like that. And then back in 2017. And if you want to read our blog and go see like all this stuff in detail, definitely go ahead and do that. But back in 2017, 2018, my sources are telling me, that vanilla image is not for anything. A lot of people want to shut off their Disney image. The moment they're out of Disney, they're like, I'm finally an adult, take me seriously. There's a reason why Selena didn't, because her team didn't want to sacrifice the possible one thing she had, which is that kid audience. It's also why a lot of the times when we think about Selena doing something scandalous, it doesn't really, we can't really remember much of her scandals because she was making sure she kept that good Disney image because she was in good graces with Disney. And there was this whole thing of, if she doesn't become this next big actress and she's not selling as much as she should be selling, we could easily use Disney to kind of bring her back at the top. So finishing up on this idea that Selena had this long drug addiction, I want to say that, so yes, she's been to rehab publicly 4 different times. She has admitted to going to AA and NA meetings, and she and Justin oftentimes did drugs together, and they were even seen leaving a suspicious neighborhood in California in 2017 in October. And the nature of that video was basically somebody's buying drugs and running. You could see that Justin is the one doing the dirty work because he's the one that is allegedly buying these drugs from this gang, or they're just at a suspicious area. It's a well-known suspicious area as well. So they're buying these drugs, and there's a video on YouTube. You could literally see it. And after that, they walk away, both of them together, and randomly, out of like fear, they both start running. And it is the perfect example of this is how unglamorous some of their lives or some of the aspects of their lives actually are. Because how is it that you're an A-list pop star standing next to another A-list pop star, and you guys are so desperate enough that you are buying your own drugs, allegedly, and you're being caught on camera, and you're in a suspicious neighborhood where you can get hurt, or you might not know what the dealings are of this place, and so you just take off running after you get these drugs, or I don't even know if they ended up buying the drugs. I think maybe they were so freaked out they just took off running, but I do think they ended up buying something. So this is, the glamour of life in Hollywood. It's not that glamorous, and sometimes it is that simple. 2 A-listers in a suspicious neighborhood buying drugs. Sometimes it really is just that simple. A big part of Selena's personality change has to do with the drugs because she had a very long, intense struggle and battle with drugs. We were told in 2019, I think it was after the AMAs or before the AMAs, that Selena actually had an OD, and like Demi survived. And just like Demi, when you have an OD and you survive, there becomes like you're not used to doing things the way you used to do them before. Like Demi, I think, had said she can't drive anymore. She had to like learn how to kind of like read again. Not that she couldn't read. It was like the ability to do things that you used to do before the OD, you have to relearn it, basically. If we do take the idea that Selena possibly OD'd sometime in 2019, and this is not like a far-fetched theory, this is Hollywood. And you can survive an OD, but It's sad to say that you can be struggling hard enough that it does lead you to surviving an OD. That is very sad to say. If we say Selena survived her OD in 2019, and these are sources of mine that have been, talking to us for like a decade. So I believe what they're saying. And if you want to believe Selena's cloned just because, then okay. But the truth is sometimes much more simple. And this is an A-list star struggling with a drug addiction. And if she OD'd and it is the cause of the version we're seeing of Selena now, that makes a lot more sense. Rumor has it that she ODs in 2019, survives, and she does go to a clinic, a rehab clinic, in 2019, 2020. And 2020 was when COVID was coming around. So nobody knew where Selena was for like a few weeks, and nobody was questioning where she was because we were all at home. Celebrities were not going out. So Selena kind of hiding for a few weeks in some rehab wasn't this, where's Waldo type of scene. The way it used to be back when Selena would go to rehab and people would be like, where is she? She hasn't been seen in a while. She's in rehab. COVID kind of helped because nobody was leaving. And because nobody was leaving, nobody was going around saying, where's Selena? And she was secretly in rehab. And this is something I exposed on my blog. This is something nobody knew, not even the media knew. But I knew she was in rehab. And after exposed that she was in rehab, a few days later or a few weeks later, she posts a picture of her in her new house. This is 2020, in her new house. And I remember she had like a guitar. She was like playing the guitar, and the caption was settling into my new home or settling into X, Y, and Z, kind of showing that this is not where I was staying for a while, because the caption literally said settling into, I don't even remember it, but she said something like settling into this new place of mine. And it kind of confirmed to me that she was not staying where she said she was staying. She was at a rehab, and it could be because of the OD in 2019. To put that in perspective, I do think Selena's personality and mindset change has to have happened from the amount of nonsense she was seeing and doing all those years. And then if you add a possible OD, her brain must have been like wired differently after that. She also, the kidney transplant, like Selena did not have an easy end of her 20s, early 30s. Honestly, an easy start to her 20s. 21 is when she really started doing heavy drugs. So, it wasn't like she didn't have this easy, charismatic, every guy wants me type of persona she was giving out on the Revival tour and on the Stars Dance tour. She was struggling a lot behind closed doors. And we know some of those struggles because time always tells on a person. If you wait long enough to see something, you're going to see something. And we've waited long enough to finally see that, the cracks started to show in this picture that Selena and her team were trying to paint. There's a reason why, when Justin was seen as an emotional mess, there's a reason why nobody said he is cloned, right? Because him and his team didn't really put in much effort to give you a version of Justin that was this picture perfect pop star, you know? There's a reason why when Demi was, fighting with yogurt shops and going off about being California sober, nobody was saying, is this girl cloned? Because her and her team never put in so much effort to paint you this picture perfect pop star. Same with Miley Cyrus. Same with Ariana Grande, These are people who, yes, they tried to have a good reputation. Yes, their team did a lot of damage control, but ultimately there were cracks that they just let show. With Selena, though, you kind of get this version of her, and suddenly the only theory that makes sense is that she's been cloned. And it's like, no, she has not been cloned. This is just karma catching up to her. And it feels like it's all coming out at once because it was denied for so long. Now, that is regarding Selena and drugs and the possible explanation for why we see this version of her today. But there is a lot more that goes into it that's more than drugs. And if I remember something that has to do with Selena's drug addiction linked to her personality now, I'll definitely say it. To move on, there was more things in this theory of Selena being cloned. So now the next part of the theory, and it's a funny part, is that Selena and Justin had a kid, Reign Disick, and they had to sacrifice him, and so instead Selena chose to sacrifice herself. That was a real theory going around when this clone theory came up. And people said she is so the type to sacrifice herself. I'm like, what? So, Selena can't carry kids, right? And this is something that I believe is being blamed on lupus. But before, lupus took over, allegedly, Selena wasn't able to carry kids regardless. And we've had sources tell us before that she has miscarried a bunch of times. Sources have told us as early as, I want to say 2012, that that was the first time she ever miscarried. Was 2012, 2013, something like that. I don't know if it was Justin's child. I don't know who it was, but I do know it was very early on that she did miscarry. And it happened a few more times, but nothing of significant impact. It wasn't like, she miscarried 10 different times. No, it happened like maybe 3 or 4 times. And when I would hear that Selena is miscarrying, I would blame it on the amount of drugs she's doing. Sorry, but she did so much drugs, she needed a new kidney, I guess you can blame lupus on the kidney, but I think it says something if the kidney donor's dad, Francia's dad, says that Selena and Francia stopped talking because she gave her a kidney and she continued to drink and she continued to do drugs. So I think that says a lot. We could blame lupus on a lot of these things, but how many people do you know that have lupus that are getting kidney transplants? If you're destroying your liver, you might need a new organ. And I remember when I would hear that she had a few miscarriages, it wouldn't be like in the moment. It would just be like, oh no, she did have one in 2012, I would always think like, oh, it could be, the drugs. So that's why I don't believe that Reign Disick is Selena and Justin's child. Believe it or not, Selena and Justin do not have a child. And had they had a child, that child would be in the picture. Okay, because Justin and his instability was not somebody who was going to hide a child. He wasn't even hiding his drug addiction in 2014. He's going to hide a child. Like at that point, nobody had faith in Justin. Like they you would open up Twitter or you would open up social media, and whatever scandal hit you first is what hit you first, really. And I think that's how his team looked at him too. So he wasn't going around trying to hide kids because of his reputation. It was already down in the gutter by that point. And Selena not being able to carry kids is a good indicator that Scott and Courtney's child is not Justin and Selena's child. Now, regarding the tattoo and the angel wings, Justin gets this tattoo of Selena in 2013. Yes, I believe it was 2013. He gets this tattoo of her and he puts angel wings around her. Now, this is before 2017. This is before the kidney. This is before all these things. This is before, allegedly Selena got sacrificed in 2017. The reason why he puts these angel wings is just because he was in love with her and, in a way, this is his angel. And things got so messy between them. He got this tattoo, by the way, when they were broken up, having one of their on again, off again eras. Things got so messy between them that he ended up changing the face of the tattoo and making it look like the devil. Okay, so I'm going to repeat because nobody seems to remember this. Justin gets the tattoo of Selena. He only has it in its original form for a few months before he changes it into a devilish looking person. Now, at the time, one of Justin's best friends, Lil Zay, or Lil Zaw, don't know, don't care, he had tweeted, "The devil used to be an angel." And he was liking tweets that basically said like, oh, he's shading Selena, he's blah, 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 blah. And it kind of let us know that Justin purposefully changed the face of the Selena tattoo because he was mad at her because they were going through hell and back. And social media can't seem to understand that because they want them back together so badly that the only way to understand why Jelena's not together is that Selena died and the kid was sacrificed to a Kardashian. And that's why Justin married Hailey, so that he could be close to his kid. Like, that's how far social media took the theory. That is the only explanation as to why two A-list stars didn't end up together. It wasn't the fact that they were both, going to kill each other with the drugs they're doing, with the fact that they were both very toxic, the fact that they were both, hurting the other. No, it was because she was killed. So yeah, the idea that Selena has a kid with Justin is total nonsense. And the reason why people think, and I probably should have said this earlier, but the reason why people think Reign Disick is Justin's child is because he looks like Justin. He looks like Justin, and there were rumors that Justin and Courtney had an affair. And I do believe her and Justin were hooking up, but I don't believe the product of that was Reign. Reign was born in December 2014. The rumors of Justin and Courtney hooking up happened in 2016. Nobody in 2014 necessarily thought Justin and Courtney were hooking up. And, I'm not one to say that if it didn't happen publicly, it didn't happen behind closed doors. But I do think that because Reign kind of looks like Justin, really just like a white kid, because he looks like Justin, people automatically assumed this is Justin's child. And he does look like Scott Disick as well. And when these rumors came out, both Courtney and Scott Disick denied them. They denied them, they slammed them, they said that's not true. If the most you have to a theory is just these two kind of look alike, then, And I didn't think it was true at the time either. And I do want to say that 2014 is when Reign was born. 2013, let's say they were hooking up. Justin was busy hooking up with other people at the time. There were other people we can attribute to Justin Bieber's hookups in 2013 that were not Kourtney Kardashian yet. I don't really think Kourtney was there. I think Kourtney and Justin had a thing in 2016, maybe earliest 2015. Yes, so I hope this addressed all of the Selena clone rumors. I think there was another thing that Selena's tattoos were disappearing and coming back, and people were like, "Oh, this is proof that she was cloned because her back tattoo isn't here in this picture, but it's here over there." No, Selena has all her tattoos. Whether that's real Selena or cloned Selena, those tattoos are there. I think the time that she took away her back tattoo, that rose that's bleeding or something, was for her wedding, which makes sense. Other than that, if she does ever cover them, just wait a few days and then they pop up again. It really, I guess it's just preference on why she wants to cover them at the moment. And even so, I haven't ever seen Selena with her tattoos covered, The only thing that was covered was her back tattoo for her wedding. I hope this kind of gave some clarity on the Selena being cloned. Everything I've said, by the way, is public information. Maybe not the miscarriages maybe not the miscarriages, but Selena's drug addiction, if you go and search it up, you will find it there. Selena and her tattoos missing and coming back, if you go and search it up, you will find it there. Reign Disick's parents saying that's not Justin Bieber's child, if you search it up, you will find it there. So do the research, but everything I'm saying right now, trust me, it is for the most part, public information. Even down to Selena kind of having this weird animosity to her other peers and them having the same animosity back. It's there. It's just, it might be hard to see because you'd have to get articles from 2013 and shade attempts on Twitter from 2014. And, a lot of these receipts are kind of dead. Not on my blog, though. They're up if you want to check it out. If you want to check out everything I'm saying, do yourself a solid and don't even Google search any of this. Just go read Scandalous Media's blog posts from 2013 and 2015 and 2014 and just go read them because everything I'm saying, the proof is there. Disregard all the jokes I'm making to Selena, though. That's a different type of love. Disregard all those. We were young and silly, but the facts have always been the same as they are now. So let's see if there's anything else that needs to be addressed about Selena being a clone. Oh, Benny Blanco. People said she would never date Benny Blanco, and she is Selena from 2016 or whatever. And, he's dirty, he's stinky, and all this stuff. And somebody said a tweet that was so on point that I have to literally go and pull it up because I want to read this word for word. I want to read this word for word because, again, when Selena dated Benny and married him and all this nonsense, I said, you guys do not know who she was. This version of Selena that would never date Benny, you don't even know who that version was. This is a manufactured pop star. One of the best. I'll give it to her. Her reputation was, it really felt like I was being gaslit by Selena 24/7. Somebody takes a screenshot of page 6. And the page 6 headline says, Selena Gomez urged to divorce Benny Blanco after he exposes his dirty feet, farts in podcast video. And the name of this person is Woke Mind Virus 2. And they say, y'all don't understand the charm of dating a guy who was a little gross when you are a chronically ill girl. Because when you having diarrhea and throwing up and getting surgery, he's not shaken. ... Y'all won't get it. And somebody quotes it and says, first convincing thing anyone has ever said about this relationship, and it has 50,000 likes on Twitter. I believe that if you're having a hard time understanding why Selena wants to be with somebody like Benny, and Selena herself is not having a hard time understanding this, then clearly there's something about Selena you don't understand or you don't know. On top of the personality change, I kind of just forgot about this big elephant in the room. She is somebody who is chronically ill, and she is somebody with bipolar disorder, and she is somebody who experienced psychosis. So when you're experiencing psychosis and you're bipolar, there's going to be a change in who you become. Selena's healing process probably felt like going to hell and back because she was somebody who was experiencing a lot of things that we don't understand. She was experiencing bipolar disorder, undiagnosed at the same time. She was experiencing psychosis episodes. She was having an alleged OD in 2019 and survived it. I remember sources at the time telling me, she's on her deathbed. Sources were telling me in 2019, Selena's on her deathbed, 2020 actually. And I made a post and I was very sympathetic and I was like, oh, uh-oh. And Selena was basically saying like to her friends, and you could believe this if you want, or you don't have to. You can continue believing, Selena's a clone and all that. This makes more sense, and I do believe it. Selena was laying in bed on her deathbed with all her friends around her, kind of like My Mind and Me type of. Like when you watch My Mind and Me, Selena's friends that are with her 24/7 are not like Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. No, it's the people who actually know, what she's dealing with. So they're around her and she is literally saying to them, this is my karma for what I've done. We could blame it on lupus, but we could also blame it on a combination of many different things. I'm not, Xing out lupus out of the equation, but I am saying it's not just, all of this is not just lupus. And I'm saying that because that is what I believe. So Selena being extremely frail during these times, on top of that, the Jaylee wedding, on top of that, the drugs, on top of that, lupus, on top of that, feeling like my life is now completely over. It makes a lot of sense as to why the version we see now is kind of what came out of all that trauma, of all that toxicity, of all that self-sabotaging. She had to claw her way back to life, back on her 2 feet, back to normally functioning. And it is the result of what you're seeing now. This is a person who is going to be different from themselves 10 years ago, because 10 years ago was the climax of, the downfall of Selena. Like a lot of times people romanticize 2016 and 2017 and, Selena that was this, Selena that was that. She was miserable during those times. Some of it was self-inflicted. A lot of it was just bad karma, your actions catching up to you, and life in general, honestly. Benny may not fit the mold that you guys have for Selena, but Selena herself doesn't even fit the mold that you guys have for her. And she knows that. She led you all astray with this personality and this like kindness, and Justin Bieber is my only, the only issue in my life right now. And it's like she's had a million different issues. And part of it is bad karma. I mean, this is the same person who willingly and intentionally worked with Woody Allen to try and climb that acting ladder. Her mom publicly said, I told her not to work with him many different times. I argued about her working with him. And for Selena, she does whatever she wants. It goes in one ear, out the other. She does whatever she wants. You cannot persuade her to do something she doesn't want to do. This is her mom venting on social media, mind you. And so obviously everyone knows Woody Allen, disgraced producer, actor, director, all the stuff. Search up why people say that, and it's pretty disgusting. And for Selena to know this and not care and still work with him because that's how desperate she was to kind of grasp at something in the acting world tells you the kind of karma that comes around for somebody like Selena. Definitely during those 10 years of hers that people keep romanticizing, she was not the best type of person, I would say. The version of Selena that we see now is somebody very sweet, very kind, A little erratic, yes, but a lot nicer, a lot more humble, just different. She is a different person. The version that everyone is romanticizing, just know that that version of Selena was not at her best. Moral-wise, health-wise, personality-wise, I mean, she was using people and, disregarding them as if they were nothing. A great example is working with Woody Allen, somebody who was disgraced at the time, but she was so desperate to shake hands with the right people that she didn't care. She didn't care what kind of message that sent. You guys have to understand that Selena did not wake up one day and decide to have a lobotomy and decide to be cloned. It's been a long time coming, as Taylor says. That's why when Selena sees people saying, oh, Revival Selena would never date Benny, she rolls her eyes and says, Revival Selena would have dated a dictator if she had to. If it meant digging Justin Bieber's grave and getting a #1 song, she would have done it. That's how desperate she was to be successful. I like to say a couple of things saved Selena, and it was Rare Beauty, Only Murderers in the Building, and Benny Blanco. Because she's finally happy successfully doing something that she's always wanted to do. I mean, Rare Beauty is giving her more money than either of us can imagine, and she's finally on a respectful, successful acting show. And for those of you who have not watched Only Murderers, give it a shot. It is honestly one of my favorite shows. And who was the third? Oh, Benny Blanco, right? And people oftentimes are like, oh, Benny smelly and this and that and that. And trust me, if Selena wants to be with Benny, she's going to be with him. She's not being forced. So that is a little bit of explanation for why people think Selena has died. Oh, and about Jeffrey Epstein saying he has DIE-cided instead of decided. Jeffrey Epstein was spelling a lot of things wrong, left and right. He had his fat little fingers on his BlackBerry probably, and so he had a lot of spelling mistakes in a lot of the emails he would send. There would also be like random symbols, because if he was trying to type something and he accidentally hit some, the percentage sign, it was there. So that could have been just a coincidence, which I know nobody wants to hear that right now because nothing is a coincidence and nothing is a conspiracy, but I do think that was just a coincidence. And the whole he has decided on Selena Gomez during the time of her kidney transplant, that could have really been anything. There is a story about Selena's kidney transplant that is not something I'm going to discuss, but there is something around that where I would believe somebody as powerful as Jeffrey could be helping out with, if that makes sense. The whole he has decided and spelling it wrong, he spelled a lot of things wrong. I hope this podcast episode helped you guys understand a little bit more about Selena. I'm all down for somebody being cloned. I think, great conspiracy theory, but it just doesn't make any sense with this person. I can do an episode about Justin and his emotional state and why he married Haley and all of that, because there is a lot more to them. And there's always going to be a lot more to Selena and this topic. It's just, I'm telling you right now, the lobotomized version of her comes from her bad choices, and she knows that. It's not necessarily that she's cloned. So if you guys have any questions and you want to know more about this, we will be answering questions down in the comments below. And if this podcast gave you extra confusion, I hope to clear that up as well. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.